reconvene the adjourned meeting of June the 25th, 2020, Jefferson County Commission. And if there's any additional business to be transacted to that meeting, it needs to be stored this time. There being none, that meeting is now adjourned. I call to order the meeting of July the 9th, Jefferson County Commission at 9:04, not 8:04, 9:04. Mr. Roberto, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Evans?
Y'all on?
He's here, he was on mute.
I'm
Commissioner Martin?
here.
Commissioner Evans?
Present.
Commissioner Johnson?
Good morning.
Commissioner Stevens?
I'm here, thank you very much. Let us stand for the invocation, please. And we're going to get Michael Martin, please, the pledge.
Need the words?
He might.
Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you with humble hearts. Dear Lord, as we sit down, we're about to do the business of Jefferson County for its citizens. We ask that you be with us and touch us. Give us the wisdom, the strength, the courage, and the guidance to do the right thing, and in your name. Dear Lord, we come to you again with heavy hearts for the violences that's occurred in Jefferson County, and we ask that you touch the families of those that received the losses. God bless them. They did nothing wrong, just pure victims. Dear Lord, be with those who did this and touch their hearts. Help us, the citizens of Jefferson County, to gain a better understanding and help us to learn to work better together for your good. Dear Lord, as the coronavirus pandemic extends to another week, month, let's pray that we get this under control so we can return to a sense of normalcy. Dear Lord, we look to you for guidance, we look for you to help, and we look for you to be our Savior. For we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Attention, salute, and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda are public hearings. We have several, and it is unusual that we have no opposition to any of these hearings. So I'm going to depend on Mr. Morrison. I'm going to depend on Mr. Morrison to describe each of these, and we will vote. And if there are any particular questions, we can bring the individual in to answer those questions. Michael, let's begin with zoning case Z 20-0004.
Hold on just a second. We're getting there. This one.
This is a Sanitation Inc. and Randy Haddock owners. Tim Haddock, agent, requests a change in the zoning for parcel IDs 1328-22.00 and another parcel in section 28, township 16, range 2 west. They're asking from an I-4 to an I-1 light industrial for compliance and expansion of portalet rental business.
That's correct. This business has been on this property for a long time, and they've got a lot of outdoor storage with their product that they rent out. And they came in to get permits, and that was a chance for us to get them into compliance. This is along Pennsylvania Parkway. You know, we've had several cases over the past few years where we've gone from the industrial park zoning to this light industrial to allow specifically for outside storage. This is another one of those cases. We had one back in March. So it's just the gradual rezoning along the corridor for compliance purposes.
Any opposition?
No, sir.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Do we need to have a public hearing?
He does need to call the
Public
vote,
hearing.
yes.
Yeah, I will, that's something.
Okay.
Public hearing, is there anyone in the audience, I'd like a public hearing at this time. Is there anyone in the audience that would be in favor of or against it? There being none, public hearing's closed.
Move the item.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Case Z 20-005. Michael, I'll let you do this.
Yes, sir. This is at 2479 Old Rocky Ridge Road. This is a property that it is inundated with floodplain. It has legacy RT, which is townhome, as well as estate zoning on it. The property owner who lives next door owns a large piece of property and has some horses that's zoned agricultural. She wants to acquire this for pasture land. And again, that's sort of a perfect use for flood-prone properties.
Like to open a public hearing, case Z 20-0005. Is there anyone in the audience who would be in favor of or in opposition to this? Seeing none, that public hearing is closed.
Move the item.
Move it. Second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Case Z 20-0006, here be Jefferson. Mike.
Yes, sir. This is the rezoning request for the property where the UAB West is going to be relocated, or is proposed to be relocated, out on Bell Hill, Pocahontas, and Dickey Springs Road out in McCalla. The site itself is rather large, and like I said, it's going to accommodate the hospital. In conjunction with this particular project, there's going to be a lot of infrastructure work. There's going to be sewer expansion in the area. There's going to be some road work that goes on, road improvements in order to facilitate the additional traffic and everything else. The Planning Commission on this case recommended approval, but recommended approval with covenants. And, excuse me, they recommended approval with covenants that all lighting be directed and shielded downward, that the site layout and architectural design be approved by the Planning Commission, as well as the third covenant that they had was a 35-foot natural or undisturbed planted buffer, along where they have existing residences, because there are still a few that are within the area. You'll see those right there on Pocahontas Road, as well as along Bell Hill. And then also to have some buffering along the road frontage to protect the residences across the street, or the residences that may be existing across the street. Now, in discussion with the team for the hospital, they've proposed some alternate language for zoning conditions, which basically requires them to do the site plan again that goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and let the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the buffer that may be there. The reason for this is that this is expected to be a transformative project for the area. And if we have the covenants, they may get hung up on some legal wrangling with something that they may have to do later. And this will allow some flexibility with regards to the type of buffering, where the buffering is going to go, and just to ensure that those adjacent residences are protected via the site plan approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I believe one of the items was that they wanted to have a walking.
Correct.
path for the residents there.
Correct.
And this would give them the flexibility to have that transitional walking path for the residents
Yes.
to do that.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So that sounds like good. Like a public hearing this time for Z 20-0006. Anyone in the audience that's speaking in favor of or in opposition to it? There being none, the public hearing is closed. Now, Commissioner.
I want to be very clear. Is this are we speaking of the property to be used for a mental health facility?
No, ma'am, this is the, currently is UAB West that's located in Bessemer. This is where the hospital is going to be relocated.
Okay.
Out of
Just
McCall.
wanted to be sure.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's still in unincorporated.
That is correct.
Is there any plans to annex it into Bessemer or any other city?
I do not believe so. That's more of a question for the applicant, which we could get them. But I think that there's some funding that's tied into it.
There's
That
funding that's tied to rural that's looking very favorable. They're not going.
But also be for funding from us too, that would be.
It's what? Say that again.
I said it'd be funding from us that would be dependent that it stays in the county and not annexed. I mean, in other words, don't want the county to spend a bunch of money and then it gets annexed.
there would be a callback provision on any of that we would do.
Move the item.
So, I have a question. So we will be notified, if they receive the funding from being in the unincorporated?
Yes.
In what period of time will they notify?
As soon as it will be applicable.
Can I request that?
Mr. Pennington?
We will receive, tax on this, because we don't have to pay the roads out there.
Yeah.
There's infrastructure that's involved there, but it's,
How much infrastructure is going to be involved in that, Mr. Marker? Or Ms. Carter? Yeah.
How much infrastructure work will be required? We're not real sure at the time, but I could slide this map down. The intersection where it says Eastern Valley, you see you gotta turn, you gotta come off the interstate and turn left, come to the site. That intersection of Bell Hill and Eastern Valley's gotta be improved, and then some additional lanes added to Bell Hill. So I would estimate, 7, 10 million for all of that together.
What we will receive.
all right, CEO Keith Pennington is here. Keith, would you come to the microphone? The question before the commission was that it was about your rural grant, that the rural loan, not rural hospital loan, and any indications or intentions of moving into Bessemer after that. And that was a question that Commissioner Tyson had. If you will address that?
Sure.
Certainly appreciate it.
Right now, we're still in the process with our application, and we have talked with DC and we've talked with the state. It's kind of going back and forth with some questions that we've got to continue to answer. We feel like we're really close, but they've not given the final approval yet. Right now, the only way we qualify for it is to be in unincorporated Jefferson County. And so that's what made it a possibility for us to even go after those funds. And as you know now, the interest rates have gone to such that this really makes this an even more feasible project from a feasibility financial study. So that's where we are. Right now, we've not discussed about what we would do after the funding, and we don't know what we can do after the funding. So right now, our intent would be to stay in unincorporated Jefferson County, just so that we do not have anything that could make funds not be available to us.
How much funds are you looking at to get from the funds?
So right now, we're looking at roughly $400 million. It's kind of an interesting thing is part of it's a guaranteed loan, and then part of it's a loan for the equipment that they guarantee a bank that we're working with.
Keith, I want to be perfectly clear, and I'll let you talk this up. The county is coming off a great deal of infrastructure improvement money here. That if for some reason you decide to move that into the city of Bessemer, that we will have a callback provision on that infrastructure work, because we wouldn't be doing our citizens right to do it any other way.
Correct.
As long as you understand that up front and have that in mind, we really don't, that's the only dog we have in that hunt.
Is it in black and white? Is it in white?
It will be.
Oh.
Okay?
Now, we've heard that 7 to 10 million it'll cost the county in order to do road improvements to facilitate this. Is that 400 million available for that funding, or is that something different?
No, sir, it's something different.
Mr. Shea.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you said that. And I also ditto what Commissioner Tyson mentioned. However, is there a provision that we can vote on today to ensure what our concerns are alleviated? That's a Theo question. Is he on?
I think you got two different issues here. I think at this point what you're talking about is a zoning issue.
Okay.
You got something else when you're talking about funding or clawback for road improvements.
Okay.
So to answer your question, that's not before you. But I think
get
there would
it.
be nothing, there would be nothing to prevent, when the time comes for those improvements, those funds to be appropriated, if there's something come before the commission that would allow those provisions to be put in place, conditions upon receipt of money.
Okay, and I get it, because we're only voting on the item that's before us, I get that part.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure, in case there was an oversight on my part, that if we had a callback, let's do that before we vote. So today, we're only voting on the zoning. We're not voting on any infrastructure costs or any kind of investment on our part at all.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
I have another question. Okay, once the zoning is approved and you get your money, right? Is there a clause in there that say that once you get the loan, you gotta stay in unincorporated?
Excuse me, we actually do not get the full funding until we have the construction complete. So it's like, once they approve it, the funding is ours. We have to do an interim funding ourselves, and then once that's construction complete in that 3 years, then we get the money after that. So we have
is
to,
there something in there that's preventing y'all from moving into Bessemer?
to qualify, yes, that we can't be in Bessemer.
So you can't, even after you get the loan?
Not that I'm aware of, and if something was to happen like that, there is some provisions that it would penalize us from going forward. In other words, we wouldn't qualify for any future monies or any changes with what we currently get. So you really have to stay in unincorporated Jefferson County in order to have the full qualification and the full benefits of having the USDA funding.
So what about going into McCall? Would that be, that's unincorporated, right?
It is.
So they would qualify for that. So y'all can go into McCall.
Well, the building itself is in McCall,
Mm-hmm.
but McCall is unincorporated Jefferson County.
Right.
And so, yes, that designates it as a rural hospital law.
So the area itself where you're building that is unincorporated.
Yes.
McCall.
May I speak? Randall Minor, I'm an attorney for UAB Midwest. There was a conversation about a road agreement and covenants related to that. I think UAB Midwest would be willing to agree not to annex into another city in connection with that. So not only a clawback, but a covenant saying that they would not agree to annex into another city. If that helps with the question.
No, that ain't really what it's not that I
You don't
want
want-
them to annex, I just want to have a full understanding where they're going to be. I don't want them promising people something and they're not going to do. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to see. Okay.
Mr. President, one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for my own edification. The zoning that is being asked, requested today, that is in compliance with the adjacent businesses or in that area, am I correct? I'm asking.
Currently, the property is owned agricultural.
Okay.
Okay. There are a few businesses that are here at the corner of Dickey Springs and Pocahontas, which is right there. In fact, there's an established eatery right there at the corner at Dickey Springs and Pocahontas. But in the area land use plan calls for this to be like a village center. And again, with this sort of transformative project, as well as if you look over here to the west, you have a large commercial area that's right there off of the interstate. So this is something that sort of extends and blends into where we've got another major intersection where we anticipated future commercial growth prior to the announcement that the hospital is even going to go there. So.
Right. Well, that was my last question, because I wanted to make sure that what we have before us, that zoning, it complements the existing businesses and any future development of that area. So that's pretty much what I wanted to know.
Yes, ma'am.
You've answered that. Thank you.
Very well.
Just one final thing. How many beds?
200.
All right,
Okay.
I've made a motion.
And we have a motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, it's approved.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is case Z20007. This is in the Mount Olive area. Wants to go from an R5B mobile home park to an A1 agricultural for compliance for a resident.
Yes, sir. Here's the aerial photograph of the property in question. It contains a residence. And here's the zoning map. It's one little piece that retains an old,
Like to open public hearing at this time for Z20-0007. Anyone in the audience in favor of or in opposition to this?
Can I ask a question?
yes, ma'am.
You say that they're trying to build a house there, or
It's already a house there.
it's already,
Already a house there, yes, ma'am.
or it's not a trailer park?
No, but for some reason it's zoned for trailer park. I think in the 70s they rezoned this whole north end of it, and this is the only piece that hasn't rezoned back to agricultural.
And there never was a park out there. was
Never
there?
was.
This is just one of those uh-ohs from the
It's a cleanup.
cleanup.
It's a cleanup job.
Anyone in the audience in favor of or in opposition to this? Public hearing is closed.
Move.
Been moved.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Z20-0008, Sally Muncher and Joan Thornton owners, Matthew Hill agent, request a change in zoning from C3 to A1 to consolidate zoning for 3 residential units.
Yes, sir. Again, here's a picture of the subject property. It's currently vacant. At one point in time, at some time in the either late 80s or early 90s, there used to be a bar or lounge located on the property, thus explaining the C3 zone. That building has since been demolished and the use has ceased to exist. And now somebody wants to purchase the property just to construct a residence. And so this is just going to consolidate the zoning on the property to A1. Because as you can see right now, we've got this little piece that allows for the bar and lounge, and again, this just, again, clean up.
Okay, that's correct. Like to open the public hearing at this time on Z20-0008. Anyone in the audience in favor of or in opposition to this? Again, seeing none, public hearing is closed. Chair will entertain a motion. So,
Move the item. Did you move it, Jim?
thank you.
Second.
Okay, second.
We have a motion and a second.
Mhm.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. All right, next, Michael. 20-0011. We got into double digits now.
All right. On the screen, what we have, this used to be one large piece of U.S. Steel on property. This was back when they were developing subdivisions, okay? What they've done is, when they first rezoned, they rezoned only a portion of this property to RG, which is garden home, in order to develop the subdivision. As you can see, you've got part of it that has been completed on the northern end and part of it that's been completed on the southern end, and everything else that's either in between or further to the east has not been completed yet. U.S. Steel has conveyed their portion that was zoned RG over to a new home builder. And the new home builder constructs some newer housing stock that's not permitted under current zoning covenants or under the current zoning regulations. So there's actually 2 elements to this particular request. First thing that they're doing is when they subdivide this property in order to convey it, we're dealing with the zoning issues on lots 2, 3, and 5. If you see on here, they're going to retain their RG zoning, and then 2, the question here has to pertain with covenants. Lot 4 and Lot 1 are going to retain their original zoning, which they already have today, which is A1 up at the north and I3 along the bottom, which is a heavy industrial. It's a legacy zone. U.S. Steel is going to retain those pieces for future development or just to retain the property. And everything that we use for the homes or for the continuing of the residential subdivision is going to go for RG. Now, the second element of this request, there's currently a covenant on the property that restricts the total square footage on the first floor to 1,100 square feet of heat and cooled space. In these new models of homes that they want to do, and as you'll see, these are the pictures of the models, you'll notice that they have the garage that's built in to the first floor. That takes away from the total square footage of heat and cool space on the first floor. And so basically they're requesting to modify that covenant in order to allow this particular style of housing, which will reduce the total heat and cool square footage on the first floor, yes, but will retain the overall square footage that the other houses within the community have. The as-built houses that are out there now on both separate sectors, they either have detached garage or somewhat semi-detached garage, if that makes sense. Where you've got the house structure and then you have the garage that's either out to the side or out behind the house. And like I said, what they want to do is modify it with this particular type of housing style. We did receive a lot of emails in opposition with regards to the droppage in square footage and possible effect on property values as it relates to the modification of the covenant. However, it was explained at P&Z hearing that the overall square footage would not be changed substantially, not changed from what's already on the ground. And then even since then, they've gotten out to the community and put out some flyers and everything else. We've had some questions, fielded some questions and phone calls. In fact, one of the emails that we had in opposition, the person requested to withdraw. So again, that's the nature of the beast on that. The applicant is here if you've got questions for him. I apologize for the complexity of this particular case.
All right. Mr. Dawson.
How many emails you had against?
Originally, probably about 10, 15, something like that. And then again, we had one that redacted, and then we've had several emails since then too from people in the neighborhood just calling in, asking questions about it. I've sent them copies of the housing stock. Ever since the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, it seems like there's been a calming of opposition or anything else. In fact, I don't recall that we've received any opposition since Planning and Zoning hearing.
This bottom house, is that a front door on the top floor?
Yeah.
Door?
Like a little balcony, like what they call like a Charleston style.
Probably a master bedroom out there to go out to.
Mm-hmm.
What is, what's the nature of the opposition and who's making who's opposed to it? Is it residents, neighbors? I mean,
I can answer part of that for you.
Yeah.
It was mainly to the reduction of square footage on the first floor. They thought that it was going to reduce their property values. And I personally talked to about 3 of them, and once they saw the style of house and that it looked good and was really congruent to what was there, the people that I talked to were all right. It was totally based on when you do the change of zoning from 1,100 square feet on the ground floor to 650 square feet. All kinds of flags were raised, and everyone was concerned. But I think that do a good job of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think that everyone's fears were taken care of.
Mr. Morrison, is this the only style house they'll be building?
No, they've got several styles.
But they will all be 2 stories? They will all be 2 stories like this?
Well, they still, of course, have the option to do just a 1-story house, but they'll have to meet the minimum square footage
Right.
for just a 1-story.
what's
McCall.
what's the lot size it's going to be? I mean, are we going to cram a bunch of them in, lot sizes?
Well, lot sizes, again, it's already zoned for that RG lot size.
Okay.
So it's, the density is pretty well set in stone via the current zoning.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let me ask this, Mr. Morrison. So, because that was the first thing that came to mind, is that when you start talking about changing the square footage, that's always going to present a problem to existing property owners there, because then you're looking at more than likely it's going to reduce the property value. But let me ask this. Was there a conversation at any point had with Ms. Knight and the Board of Equalization? I'd be interested in knowing what the Board of Equalization had to say as it relates to the existing properties and what this Charleston style type of home, what would that do for those properties already in the area?
We hadn't had any conversation with you.
So then let me ask you something. Am I hearing you correctly when you say that once it was explained comprehensively to those who had an issue with it, it was then resolved?
At the hearing, yes, there was someone who came in opposition and then withdrew his opposition. And again, I've had emails where people that had opposition before have called to request for withdrawal. And I've had several people email since planning and zoning with questions, because I think that D.R. Horton that's the home builder that's purchased now. I think they've gone out into the neighborhood and put out some flyers and, outlined the scenarios for the houses themselves. And again, I've sent the copies of the housing plans out to the public as they've asked questions about the case. But yeah, everything seems to have been quailed since planning and zoning.
Mr. Morrison, these two-story homes will be equal to or greater in square footage than the
Correct. The
one-story.
overall square footage will be equal or greater to what was there, and that was said at planning and zoning as well.
Okay, so it
That's the
is
heat and cool space.
equal
Yes, ma'am.
to the existing
If
property?
they do 2 stories, they still have to meet the minimum square footage of a 1-story home.
Okay.
This over where the mall at?
Kind of across from it, yeah.
It's Eastern Valley
Yeah.
Road.
Mall's on this side, and they're on the opposite side of Pocahontas, and then the other side of the interstate is the hospital side. So it's all right in there together.
All these folks gonna be hooked to the sewer?
Yes, all this is on sewer.
All right.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. All right, I'd like to open the public hearing at this time for case, Z20-011.
Okay.
Move.
Gotta, you just opened the public hearing.
I'm sorry?
I thought you just opened the public hearing.
No, well, we had comments, Commissioner.
We didn't do, I thought we had, did I open, I thought.
I don't know, I just thought,
Yeah.
maybe I misheard you.
Yeah, yeah, we're good.
Okay,
Millie says we are, so that's,
all right, as long as Millie said, we're good.
there we go. Do I get a second from you on that?
I moved this bill.
Anybody
Can we
want
get
a
a
second?
second?
We have a motion
I second.
and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yay to call.
Z20,
You heard me?
we have,
You gonna
She
be-
recorded your abstention.
Okay.
Is Steve on the line? Is he voting?
no,
Why?
He can't vote because, right, he can only listen
Yeah,
according to the law.
that's what he just said, he can't vote.
yeah.
Okay.
Z20-0012. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, this particular case, this involves a property that back in the early 2000s was rezoned to rural residential, which does not allow for mobile homes. And this piece of property was part of an overall larger piece of property that was requested for rezoning at the time for a residential subdivision. And since that time, if you'll look on the screen, at the bottom left corner, you'll see there have been 2 houses that were developed as part of that rural residential subdivision, okay? Since then, we've had multiple requests on this property for rezoning back to A1. In fact, it was rezoned to A1 with a covenant for no mobile homes, again, to protect those homeowners and investors that have purchased property within that subdivided portion that's along the road frontage. In this instance, they're requesting to remove the covenant for 1 mobile home. Planning and zoning recommended approval with a covenant that would restrict the placement of the mobile home to the other side of the access easement. You see the drive that kind of cuts through the property headed up to the north? They want to locate the mobile home to the east or to the right of that easement, which is furthest away from anything that's developed within that subdivision. So that was sort of the compromise that was there to protect the resident homeowners who have built in that other zone.
Okay. I'd like to open the public hearing, Z20-0012. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or opposition to this? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move it.
Been moved. I'll second it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Z20-0014, Christian Homes and Bible School.
Yes, it's odd, the ownership of the property is odd itself, because as you can see, it's pretty well surrounded by residential subdivisions in Mount Olive. And in this instance, what we have is a situation where the rezoning, or the zoning of the property, back when they originally rezoned the territories, they did them by quarter sections. And this property itself lies at a quarter section line. So the property that's to the east of this quarter section is zoned residential, property that's to the west of this quarter section is zoned agricultural. But this particular piece of property that he owns goes on both sides of the line. This rectangular piece that's green is also part of this property as it's described on the deed. There's just two separate tax parcels again because there is a quarter section line that runs in between the property itself. So he wants to do he wants to construct a house, and given the size of the property, he wants to do agricultural zoning just so he can facilitate some larger accessory structures so he can keep up the grounds for, you know, your larger equipment, things like that. Only thing that poses a conflict with area land use plan is, of course, the mobile home aspect that comes with agricultural, which is why planning and zoning recommended rezoning the property with a covenant for no mobile homes, and that should protect the adjacent residential community.
Is there access to that property? It looks kind of like it's landlocked.
It's from Cherokee Street down here at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to open a public hearing for Christian Home Bible School, case Z20-0014. Anyone in the audience in favor of or in opposition to this? Hearing none, public hearing is closed.
I move that.
Second?
Item's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very much. Next is case 20-0017. Henry and Julie Hayes, owners, request change in zoning from strip mining to A1 for residential use.
Yes, sir. This is a rather large piece of property out in the Sardis area. And you can see from the zoning map that it is the last holdout that retains its strip mining zoning. And they want to build a house. And so this is just so they could change the zoning in order to build a house instead of strip mining.
All right, I'd like to open public hearing on Z20-0017. Is there anyone in the audience in opposition to or in favor of this? Again, seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Move that.
Second?
Item's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very much. Z20-0018, Barbara Moore, owner, requests the same change in zoning from a parcel, section 30-17-5, from I-3 to A1, down in Oak Grove area.
Yes, sir. This particular tract of property, the northern half of it has an industrial zoning. Several years ago, the property owner came through and wanted to rezone a portion of it for a contractor's yard. Since then, he wants to sell the property in its entirety, again, for residential development. And so this would change the zoning from the I-3 and A1 to just a solid A1 across the property. And again, in order for residential construction.
Do we know what the I-3 use was?
It was a contractor's yard.
Okay, but there's no brownfield issues, are there?
No, it was just storage.
Okay.
Storage of materials.
Okay, I'd like to open a public hearing, case Z20-0018, for property down in Oak Grove, change from an A1, from an I-3 to an A1. Anyone in the audience in favor of or in opposition to this? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move the item?
Item's been moved. Do I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Okay. Conditional use permit, Bailey Farm. They want to put in Loveland Park here, we want to put a
250-foot cell tower.
tower there.
Yes, sir. It meets all the requirements for a conditional use permit. Again, our ordinance requires it to be reviewed and approved by the planning commission at a public hearing. We did send out public notice. And if you look at the coverage maps that they have provided, you'll see where there is a significant gap in interstate coverage. If you look, the area in the red is what we're looking at, where they have the towers that provide the coverage for in your vehicles or if you're in your homes. This is what it looks like without the tower. This is what they predict the coverage to look like with the tower. So it will create a seamless line of coverage along 459. The area itself is fairly rural. There's only 2 residences that are within, I think, 1,000 feet, and it's all family. It's all the same family that's conveying the property or leasing the property.
So it's kind of like a public hearing for a conditional use permit for communication tower. Is there anyone in the audience in favor of or in opposition to this? Hearing none.
Did you get any
I have
opposition?
a question.
No, sir. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, as it relates to, forgive me, who did you say this tower will belong to?
It's Bailey Farms LLC. It's a family, and they basically formed an LLC. I think it's kind of like a trust, because again, it's family property. It's all pasture land.
Okay.
Um,
That's obviously when I think of, about a tower,
mhm.
now whether it be a cell tower or anything else, I'm always thinking about, so who does that affect, with the usage of this tower?
Right, and again, this is just slightly to the east of where all the development for the hospital is going to be. And then again, they're also trying to cover everybody that's going to be passing by on 459 as well.
So
So,
they get money, that tower will be on their property.
yes, there is, well, I can't, that's how that works most of the time, this way.
Don't let those towers give you cancer. I read it.
Well, I would have to defer to the applicant on that, but there's certain things that the federal government will allow you to consider with cell towers themselves, and they can't consider health effects, to my understanding of it.
Let me ask this question then, so if I mean, I know really what's before us is just whether or not we want to go with the zoning for this family who owns this property that the cell tower is on, is that
Correct.
right?
Well, it's basically just asking your permission to erect the tower at the location.
Okay, so if they, who, just from my own understanding, who would be probably, I understand the beneficiaries, but who would probably be asking of this family to locate their tower where it's going?
The way that the industry works is they try to site the locations based on where they need coverage and things like topography and all that other sort of stuff. So what they'll do is they'll see where they have a pocket, and then they'll go out there and they'll say, well, where can we put this to maximize the coverage that we need to provide to our carriers that are, again.
Right, and really what I'm asking, Ms. Morrison, is who are the they, if you can quantify who?
It's the folks who site the cell towers themselves. You got your cell tower companies, and then they contract out for these other companies to site where the cell towers are going to locate.
Verizon, AT&T.
Verizon, AT&T, and then they subsidize this into the operation out with like Crown Castle. There's several companies that do that, to site for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to for the public to know what that looks like. And the reason being too is because I don't know about anyone else, but we've been having difficulty with cell services. In fact, I think there was a blackout maybe about 2 weeks ago. And I'm always interested in where these cell towers are going because, your call can drop at any time. So you just want to kind of know, well, is it beneficial? Has there been any analysis of if it's at that location, is it going to protect those who are on those different carriers, that it doesn't impact their service adversely. So I'm always interested in knowing that based upon where it's located.
Well, one of these other things too is that in locating towers, they try to get as away from residential properties as they can. In fact, our ordinance is structured so that they would have to be located so far from what we call first of all, any residence that's out there. Secondly, any protected residential development, which is something like a subdivision or something of that population density. So they would be limited to the height there. And then also, with these towers, we also require them to offer co-location. So even though Verizon Wireless is doing this tower, Sprint is going to have to locate on this tower, as well as T-Mobile, as well as anybody else who wants to provide coverage in the area, just to minimize on the number of towers that we have out there. And then there's a lot of technology that's also currently changing with that, so that they can introduce sort of small cell technology into residential neighborhoods that would sort of prevent those sort of blackouts and things.
So one quick question then. So who is the compliance authority here that makes sure that when we make these kind of approvals of a request, that they are in compliance with what has been approved?
Right. They will submit to us some engineered drawings of everything that for the new tower itself, and we review all that at the time of building permits, and then our inspectors go out into the field to verify that everything is compliant.
And the reason why I asked, just for understanding purposes, is because there is a tower that was City of Birmingham, but in my city council district, and it neighbored the residents, as in homes in that area. And it was totally different than what it was presented in the meeting in terms of, you know, the height and what that would really look like. It was totally different than the drawing that was submitted
Okay.
and approved by the neighborhood. And so before I do that to anyone else, I would like to get a thorough understanding of who is the compliance authority on our end to ensure that what we've approved is actually what's installed on that property.
Yes, ma'am, that would be us.
Yeah, the building division inspectors and also the engineering inspector for any site plan.
Actually, it's Kamisha.
Is who?
It's Kamisha.
Okay.
She's on our staff, she reviews all the cell towers.
Okay.
It'll also benefit that new hospital, won't
It should, again, because this is just due to the east of it. In fact, I think this is the next major bridge that goes over the interstate down from Pocahontas, if I'm not correct, so. But this should provide coverage on 459 between Hoover and McCullough.
There's a cell gap, and if you go back and do those two coverages, you can see the difference before and after. That it doesn't make any difference where you live. If you're transitioning from Tuscaloosa to Atlanta, that's the after right there. See how wide that coverage is? Now go to the before, what it is now.
Nothing.
That's what you have now. That whole area there is very spotty in coverage. So what they're doing is they're trying to take care of everyone. Thank you. Now that we've had this lengthy discussion, I think we did have a public hearing, didn't we? We did, okay. Public hearing is now closed. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move the item.
Item's been moved. I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? No opposition. All right, we have ordinance amendments. Who's going to present those? Derek, are you going? Okay, good.
Yes, so they are my items. The ordinance amendments, we originally approved these back in December 2019. After looking at what was approved and some other things that we needed to tweak in the amendments, we have, I apologize, updated a lot of scrivener's errors that we have found. We have vetted this with the Home Builders Association. We have also sent this out to them in an email. We had a virtual meeting with them. The highlights of the changes, I don't have anything. The highlights of the changes are just some administrative language. All of the numbering conventions in the 4 ordinances are now consistent. The formatting is consistent. We allow for a permit to be transferred under certain conditions. Before, that was prohibited in somebody. If there was a death of the contractor, you actually had to reapply from the beginning, and now we allow that permit to be transferred. We have clarification of when a permit expires, so it's very easy and clear language to understand. We have updated and clarified the fee structure that we have to work more with the CELA, our online permitting system that you're aware of that we're working on. And that's really about it as far as what the updates are in these 4 items.
it? I move item 1 through 4.
Have a motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, you have before you the call.
They require a public hearing.
Public hearing. We'd like to open public hearing, any more than required. We'd like to address this particular issue on ordinance amendments. Seeing no one to address it, the public hearing is now closed.
I'll
Got a
move it
motion
again.
and a second.
You already made the motion, and it's been seconded.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So I guess we're good. Approval of minutes. Commission meeting June 25th, 2029 AM minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, or revisions to these?
Move the suspension of the reading and adopt them as written.
Have a motion? I'll second that. All in favor say aye. Aye, thank you very much. Commissioners, you have now 63 resolutions that were properly vetted in our pre-commission meeting. Is there any particular resolution that a commissioner would like to pull for separate vote or consideration or discussion?
Which one are you talking about, Jeff?
I can't move them from the chair.
Yeah, move that.
Items have been moved. I can second from the chair. I'll second those items. Resolutions 1 through 63. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Mr. Kelly, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Lawson?
No.
Commissioners? We just go 1, 2, 3, and 4. How about that? You want to do it backwards? Do it backwards. All right, Commissioner Knight, you have anything?
I just have a couple of things. 2 days from, I think, Wednesday, the World Games will be here. And this week we have named Sir Charles Barkley as the honorary chairman of the games. So there'll be a couple more coming, but he's the first, so that'll be good. Are we done?
No, that's
I was talking back there. I thought we was done. I'm ready to go. Okay.
You know, I'm bad about that, Commissioner, I apologize.
Well, you know, I'm down here in the cheap seat, so I don't know what's going on back there.
We'll keep you informed.
Anything else?
Sitting in a pigeon.
All right, Mr. Mark.
I just wanted to thank Aldine for their cooperation and help on Oxmoor Boulevard and I-65. They're helping us with some funding, approximately $400,000. Y'all signed the agreement, but appreciate working with Aldine, the way they work with us.
We had a Board of Health meeting last night that were concerned about the increase in the number of COVID cases. Health and Human Services has a committee that came yesterday, and they're here, they'll be here through noon today. Kind of a rapid response team that this has been identified as a pre-hotspot, I guess is what you can say. They're trying to hold that back as much as they can. So we want to follow those health guidelines as much as we can and understand that these hospitals are getting filled right now. Each of you should have received, but I handed it out again today. Per statutory requirements, the health department is required to submit a budget for the next fiscal year by June the 30th. They have done that, and some of you, I know it went to each commission office, and I know it went to you, Mr. Tellis. But I wanted to make sure that the commissioners had that ability to personally see it and look at it to make sure that we're good. Again, on top of that, our Cooper Green testing initiative Commissioner Tyson asked me again about that. We want to make sure that they have fundings that are needed and necessary to get this done. We want to have a clarification for our state funding initiative to make sure that we're working together with the state, that there's not a lapse or a miscommunication in that. And also with UAB. I understood through the health department meeting that UAB is making a request to Jefferson County now also. Is that correct, Mr. Phillips?
Yes, that's the same, it's UAB in conjunction with Cooper Green.
So UAB and Cooper Green are working together.
Right.
Do we know a dollar amount of that?
It's $8 million, but it's much more than testing. We were on a conference call yesterday with Dr. Wilson and several of the folks at UAB and with Whit O'Brien going through it. It's a very lengthy document, and we hope to have everything worked out by next week.
Were there any concerns by Whit O'Brien?
They had several questions, and that's why they had UAB and the health department on the phone to make sure that we're working in conjunction with each other to, as far as the testing parts of their proposal.
What specifically parts of the testing done?
The UAB, their proposal is to do testing with their own staff instead of contracting the work out, and having that testing done throughout the county.
Is it for a specific population or area, or is it just, you know, we've got these things that we're doing testing and they're popping up and then they go down. I mean, is this something that puts something permanent throughout, or is this directed at Cooper Green patients, or is this?
No, it's not directed at Cooper Green patients. It's directed.
I know at one point in time, we were talking about getting our patients, trying to get them tested, but this is something different.
Get who?
The patients, our Cooper Green patients tested.
Yeah, they're doing that. They're doing that. Laura was able to get some testing kits, so they are doing testing at Cooper Green now.
So what is this proposal for $8 million?
It's a very lengthy proposal involving testing and working in the community to make sure that the folks that are out there, they understand that we have testing available and that those people are being able to be tested.
I don't want to speak for the entire, well, I will speak for the entire commission. If we could get a copy of that.
Sure, I'll send it to you.
Would appreciate that. These things that we're being asked to vote on, and at the time that we vote on it, we take ownership of this program after it's been pre-cleared by you and the Whit O'Brien people. We want to make sure that we coordinate, and these monies that we have are available to the majority of our citizens, and that we're spending these federal funds to the benefit of the most citizens. And it's very important that we do that and to remain transparent as we do that. Some of the things that I heard in the health department meeting last night were a little different than what I understood from here. So I picked up that clarification, and we want to work together. And I'm going to ask the county management to please contact each commissioner and keep them updated at least weekly as to the progress of this. That way, when we vote on something, we know what's going on, and we have that input beforehand instead of having to bring it out in this type of situation.
Yeah, I think that was kind of our idea when we set up the process, was to have something that we could see going in, and then it goes to y'all, and then it comes out. But sometimes we're just getting it out.
Yeah, and what I'm gonna do, I'll send that to you, but there will be changes made that Whit O'Brien are making, recommendations. So what you get today will not be the final document.
Oh, I understand that, I understand that.
The purpose of it and the intent of it and the operation of it, when we vote on it, we take ownership of it.
Right.
If something's not right on it, it's not gonna be Will Brown's fault or your fault, it's gonna be our fault, because we voted on it. And that if there's any money that's due back because it wasn't done properly, it comes to us, the commission. So we want to be aware of that at the beginning. Also, the dollars that were set aside for the municipalities, we need to make sure that they are properly communicated with to understand that, and that those dollars are available to them. And we do need a progress report on that also.
Well, that's a two-way street too.
What's that?
I said, it's a two-way street. Those mayors have got to be engaged too, to
Yeah.
say, hey, you know, I mean, that information's been put out to them, so.
Well, there's several different layers of sophistication when we talk about that. We have the city of Birmingham, who has worlds of resources, and you can tell them that, and it's done. And then you have the smaller municipalities who are trying their best to keep their head above water, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the need is any less there. And I guess what I'm trying to say, if you need a commission representative for each particular district to go make that point clear, council meeting, we're available to do that. We don't want anyone to say, well, I didn't know, or I didn't understand.
Well, we worked with the Mayor's Association. We explained the program. We had about, I believe, 19 mayors at that meeting in Gardendale. Justin has received, we have received several phone calls, them asking questions. Some of the cities have been talking to Whit O'Brien to make sure. So we're working through the process. Yeah.
How many applications do we have in yet so far?
With the cities, nothing yet.
Nothing yet. Oh.
And Health Department, I don't have theirs either.
They passed a resolution last night. It should be coming very soon.
And this is a moving target too, so I mean, you know what they may need now,
May change.
correct?
Well, what I suggested to them last night at the meeting is that I would go through July 1st for actual expenditure and then submit the projected expenses
Moving forward.
from July 1 to
That's good.
December the 30th. That was the suggestion that I had. That way they would have monies available, and then you would be able to understand how much possibly they would need moving forward. And I think one of theirs was a pediatric initiative to make sure. I asked them also about a school plan, if they had any input into how each school system was going to reopen and the precautions that each needed to take. And they're supposed to be coming through with something on that also.
Well, that needs to, now the health department's gonna lead that initiative?
No,
Okay.
the health department's going to offer input into that initiative.
Because I know there's several schools that's already planning ahead. I mean, you know, we're not that far away from school opening, so they're already putting plans in place, so.
Right.
I would hate for the health department to come in late and say, hey, well, no, you have to do this. That would be a little bit untimely. That's the reason I said.
Their role is, they hope their role to be more advisory than regulatory.
No, but across the nation, some of them are becoming more than advisory.
I understand. but from personal knowledge at the meeting last night, they chose that, and I think I have an email, I'll share that with you. Commissioner Scale, you have?
Yes, sir. Please.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So today, we have representatives from Woodlawn High School, and this is a part of the litter quitters, and I'm very excited for them. Come on back. We can do 6-foot distancing, but you're a little bit more than that. And so I wanted to read the resolution that is being presented on behalf of the Jefferson County Commission. Whereas littering along Jefferson County roadways is harmful to our communities and environment, whereas informing people the negative impacts of littering is an important component in litter prevention. Whereas Litter Quitters is an anti-litter video competition among public high schools within Jefferson County's 3 major watersheds. Whereas all public high schools within Jefferson County were invited to create and to submit 1-minute video, whereas in spite of school closures and other restrictions imposed during the COVID-19 pandemic, 3 high schools were able to complete and submit a video in the competition, which the Litter Quitters Committee posted on the YouTube Litter Quitters channel. Whereas the students promoted their video to friends, family, and community to obtain likes, whereas the video with the most likes received a cash prize. Whereas an anti-litter commercial featuring video has been submitted for participating schools, was professionally produced and aired on TV, and 3 digital billboards displayed the Litter Quitters anti-litter message. Whereas Litter Quitters empowers students to be the change they want to see, and provide ways to encourage their friends to not litter. Therefore, be it resolved with the Jefferson County Commission of the State of Alabama that a copy of this resolution is presented to Woodlawn High School in recognition of receiving first place with 4,858 likes. So I want to make sure I say that again, 4,858 likes in the video competition, and is signed by all of the commission, and we really do appreciate your participation. Would you like to have anything you want to say?
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you all for participating, and do you mind introducing those that are with you this morning?
I'm by myself.
You're by yourself, and you're with?
I'm with Ramsey High School.
You with Ramsey High School. Okay, so then Ramsey actually is in Commission District 2, and then we'll just make sure that you get your resolution as well, because we do appreciate you all for not only participating, and we know that COVID is made a new day and a new way of how we do business. So the mere fact that the students participated, that is always absolutely beautiful to me. Is that one of the students? You want to have something to say, sweetheart? You don't? Come on, I'm gonna make you anyway. You can't come by me and don't talk.
Let me ask a question. That video y'all made, was she in it?
No, she's not one of my.
I'm talking about Mama Scales.
Well, Joe, don't be jealous. You can be Papa Knight in your district. You have anything you want to say? I want you to say something. You worked hard.
I'll just say thank you for the opportunity to participate in the video competition. Hats off to Woodlawn, who produced a beautiful video, and it was just an excellent competition all around, and it informed me of a lot of things that I was not aware of. So just the opportunity to research and learn more about it while being able to, engage in friendly competition with those in my district was very fun. So,
Did
thank
y'all
you.
actually do a pickup, a cleanup?
Yes, sir. We cleaned up around our school for our video, but I know some other schools, they did like different things with theirs.
What was the number one thing you probably picked up that people were going out?
Well, in my school, it was chip bags. But
All right.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Young lady,
Yes, sir.
to be bashful, you speak eloquently.
Thank you so much.
She does. Stay right here. So that's one of the reasons why, Mr. President, that I wanted her to speak. I don't know this young lady personally, but I think that every time students have the ability to speak, I'm gonna force you to take advantage of it. My sister graduated from Ramsey High School, went on to be the senior content producer at CNN. So I know that we have beautiful Birmingham City School students, but people will never know if you don't talk.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I wanted to make sure that we celebrate all of our students, our schools for participating, because I believe that this is how you teach students how to have pride in their community, and they're less messy with their chip bags when they know they have to pick them up. And so this is a program I know that was started by the commission president. He shares this program with all of us in our school systems, whether they are Jefferson County schools, Birmingham City schools, and schools just throughout Jefferson County. So it's a privilege and an honor to have you all working hard, and you're going to be that change that you want to see, because I don't plan to be in politics forever. I want you to learn how to do it young and get involved and do just what you're doing and learn how to be an advocate for the young people in your age group. Do you have anything, ma'am, you'd like to say?
Yes.
Absolutely. Come on.
I would like to thank the committee for inviting us to participate. This is our first year. They had a hard time finding a science teacher, so they found, I'm a business education teacher, and so she was in my IB film class, and so it was a great learning opportunity for our students to learn about the litter and the sewage backups and all that. And I also want to say hi to Mr. Stevens. We talked together at Hewlett-Town High School.
We did.
Yeah, so
We did.
business ed teacher. So, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate that.
So,
Putting our kids first.
so, Mr. President, if you don't mind, my understanding Commissioner Tyson is on her way, and she wanted to present you all with something. And so I don't want you to leave the chamber just because of the fact that we stopped on this part. I do want to say, Mr. President, it may not be necessary, but you know, I wanted to make sure that as it relates to the young man who will be funeralized on Saturday, Roy T. Giles, we have, as a commission, wanted all of us to be able to share in with that family, to make sure that everyone knows that one loss for any family is a total loss for Jefferson County. And so I look forward, I know that Commissioner Tyson is supposed to be presenting that on today. Is that Roy T. Giles? Aren't you doing a presentation to the family today, the resolution?
At the funeral Saturday.
Okay, at the funeral Saturday. So I just wanted to make sure that we keep praying, not only for that family, but for all of our families. I know that there is a person who no longer lives here, but a great supporter in our area, and their daughter too was shot. And I just want us to just make sure that we're being very mindful, very cognizant of the road that we travel, and to make sure that everyone knows that it's up to us, as you prayed this morning, Mr. President, to love one another, respect one another, and to recognize that we're all in this together. So Commissioner Tyson, you can take it from here. And this is for Ramsey High School. And so thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Appreciate you. Thank you.
This is a resolution for the Litter Quitters program. I would like to say that, you know, we can complain a lot about young people doing wrong, but I don't think we lift them up enough when they do right. And the number of children, young people, I'm not gonna say children, young people that actually come out to actually clean up Village Creek is just amazing. And a lot of them bring their siblings and their parents come. And I'm just very excited about it. So I present you with a resolution. And an old-time friend, church member. We presented this to you from all of the Jefferson County Commissioners. And, you know, I love spending time with them also.
Okay, thank you.
So I just.
Commissioner Tyson, I think they also want to take a picture outside.
Oh, okay.
And I'd like to say, Hannah, this is your baby. And nobody recognizes you, but you do a great job with all of these schools and kids, this program, and you've done it for quite some time, so thank you also. Y'all want me to come and be in the picture? Just
Good, there being no further business, this meeting is recessed and further.